Man, oh man, oof. It's coming to an end this semester. Thank you. It's all coming to an end. Yep. Stand by. Let me get technical difficulties out of the way. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. CJTV. Chats are open. We're on YouTube and Rumble. YouTube and Rumble. Why? Because that's what we're doing tonight. Yep. Just YouTube and Rumble. Cool show tonight. The active shooter pre-intervention. Now, this was a special request, just in the ticker above the SP special episode. Special request by a law enforcement officer. Requests. End of the semester is coming up. Got a bunch of researchers. Got some new researchers, matter of fact. Yep. Got some new ones coming in. A lot of good information coming out. We got some other shows, coming out. Live stream. Got a lot of resources out there. Got a lot of publications going on. I haven't downloaded all the data on it, but yeah, we shifted this over. This was 118 days, so it's not really set and final because I still got to go in and edit it. But over right now, I know over 1,200 downloads and over 26,000 views. But we'll update that when I reach out to Chloe. Yes, Chloe, and have Chloe go through all the data. Thus, the media fire. Yeah, the media fire password entry, all that good stuff. Everything we do is actually, so to say, downloaded and researched. And I'll go ahead and present this one to kind of show everybody what I'm talking about. Just kind of before we go into the show. Let me get this open. Stand by. I'm going to open it so that everybody can see it. It's actually been released by moi through special request. And I shall open this up for the bam right there. And everything we do is a, so to say, true research. It was published. It was put out, so to say, as a white paper. It's not like your crazy academic journal thing or your, insanity, global publication. But it is what it is. It's all about CJ, psychology, and sociology. But everything for this show is out and published. Now, we scheduled this thing for the 18th, but there was a lot more stuff that came through, and you know how it is, guys. The end of the semester. This is a purely academic show. We do not cover rumble and politics in the jungle of the planet. We don't like it, we don't publish it, and we don't do it, and we don't spend our time with it whatsoever. But thanks for coming to the show. Long-term sensibility. Now, what does this mean in the world of the active shooter? Knowing what is long-term. Why are half of mass shooters already in therapy, already been recognized? Cornell, 2020. Yes, we saw their sources. Cornell, it's a chilling truth, so to say. Many school shooters were already in the radar of mental health professionals at the school or mental health professionals outside of the school. Schools counselors knew about it, and it's not, we're not trying to down school counselors or nothing. It's all based on the education of what to look for, but school counselors knew about the mental dilapidation, the trauma, what was going on in a juvenile's life. But school counselors knew. Outside agencies knew. Yes, outside agencies, law enforcement agencies, for someone that was already in the radar. And yeah, there are multiple, do your own research, multiple instances to where juveniles were in the radar of law enforcement and yet still became active shooters. We're not talking specifically in a school either. Yet the system fails to connect the dots. Yeah, the schools, the mental health professionals, the private entities, the corporations that have their own psychological review. Yeah, the corporations. Yeah, there's a such thing as a psychological practitionership in the entity of corporation. Yes, business. The distress, the impeded violence. It wasn't recognized. It wasn't caught. Unfortunately, it's true. It's just bad. Look it up for yourself. Go download the research. It's on our YouTube, on our Facebook right there. Dr. Mike Lee G, CJTV. Go get it, download it. It's put out on X. It was put out on LinkedIn. Feel free, download it, see it for yourself. Research shows that schools using threat assessment teams, individuals that work there, teachers, practitioners in the school to include cooperation or coordination or dissemination of labor with local agencies, specialize in group training evaluation sometimes. The key word is sometimes, but not significantly enough. Why is it not enough? Manpower. Law enforcement has enough hard enough time recruiting people and getting quality candidates in the agencies. Think about the schools. It's a paycheck, man. I got a degree. I got to go work with the kiddos and have a cool, fun, relaxing job in the schools, but everything I'm being taught to look for in extra training that is provided to me while I'm at the job is really not, being paid attention to. It's not the severity. It'll never happen here. Oh, contraire. It's not when or if, it's prepared for when it does. Be ready. The time of the incident is not the time to do psychological evaluation and or identification training, much like law enforcement, right? Alert training, that's not the time during the shooter to do training. You should already be trained. Specialized groups and the schools and the entities of the educational system, to include colleges, universities, have significantly better outcome than those relying on zero tolerance policies. Yeah, the ones that are really looking for it. Why? The zero tolerance policy. The intrusion. Yes, the duty to warn. The counseling referrals. It's private. Yeah, between the counselor. Information that's disclosed. But those that are actually in team building exercises and education to evaluate the warning signs have a higher outcome. That also is Cornell 2020. Threat assessment, again, defined as a structure that, or process when trained professionals evaluate whether a student possesses serious risks of violence. And we're not just focusing on students, we're focusing on active shooters everywhere. But we're just going through the actual research. And unfortunately, the research hits home at the top tier of educational institution. Wonder why? 2026. Too much bureaucracy, too much politics, not enough education. Now, I'm not saying do not be educated on the bureaucracy or politics. I'm just saying do not let that be the leading tip of the spear of the education. That is why we have something called Gen Ed first. Prereqs, right? Things we have to get done before we go to our major topics of education, major curriculum, major concentration. So those professionals have a higher means of identifying the potential violent act. This works best when it's combined with mental health experts and law enforcement. Both input data, not when the groups work in isolation, working together, inputting the data. Now, I know some of you are fans of like the FBI show Profilers, to where the FBI comes to the department and everybody takes a stab at what they're looking at. Well, it doesn't work that way in the real world, people, when it comes to psychological identity and psychological assumption and psychological diagnosis. It doesn't work that way. The probable cause. Because why? It's a juvenile if you're talking about a school. It's an adult or possibly a juvenile if you're talking about college or university. It's an adult if you're talking about business aesthetics as professional practice outside in the real world. Anybody ever heard the term gone postal? Yeah, postal workers. Been around since the 60s. The biggest failure isn't that we can't identify troubled individuals in society. It's that schools, corporations, businesses do not share critical information between teachers, counselors, employees, supervisors, bosses, administrators, due to privacy fear and bureaucratic silos of, will come after you. The fear. Yeah, one's right to privacy. Duty to warn. Intervention failure. Yeah, law enforcement failure to intervene. The charges, state and federal, for indictment. Memphis, would be a prime example. Memphis, Tennessee, prime example of failure to intervene during an incident by law enforcement. What about the school counselors and the people that actually are involved in this and can actually identify someone that does have the actual potential to become an active shooter? Yeah, the silo of bureaucratic. Well, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, what protects me, my rights? Well, when it comes to juveniles, law enforcement, the exigent circumstance can intervene. When it comes to adults, law enforcement, the exigent circumstance can intervene and violate, but with probable cause. Yeah, and, it's going to be articulated in the courtroom. It's going to be argued by defense and by counsel, prosecution. Everybody knows that. But the failure to intervene and the success of intervention. That is why those that have practitioners in the settings of schools, corporations, businesses, whatever it may be, that work together with law enforcement have a greater outcome versus those that have nothing, let alone a crash course of civilian response to active shooter. Brings me back to that horrible FBI video. Oh, yeah. Open active shooter. Let's get on the ground and have a conversation. Yeah. You know how many people are going to jump down on the ground and remember that video and have a conversation with Bob and be on the X, not literally on the X, but the X on the ground. It's kind of like shooting turkey in a barrel for an active shooter. The data proves that comprehensive threat assessment programs can prevent violence, but only when schools commit to the full protocol, only when corporations, only when businesses, only when private entities commit to a full protocol that is set in place with crash training, civilian response to an active shooter, rather than just, checking a box on a form. Yeah, we gave Bob the psychological evaluation. Well, how minimal was it? Was it an interview? Did you ask questions, or did you truly outsource it? Think of law enforcement. Law enforcement outsources. Why can't you? Why can't the corporations? Why can't the businesses? Why can't the schools for employees? One would argue it's a state level for specific practitionership skills, specific jobs. Well, that's obviously correct. It's a federal level too, but it's also an employer's responsibility. So let's go through a few topics here. The lone wolf, we had a show about that a while back. The lone wolf as an active shooter. The debunk myth. Active shooters rarely snap without a warning. Yeah, there's going to be something there, kind of like suicide. Did you miss it? Did you miss it, Steve? Did you not listen? Was there somebody that was displaying irrational behavior? Somebody that was using uncommon language that's not common to them as you know it? The anger, the animosity, especially the one with the mental illness that the intentions leak through. It's the leakage. Did you miss the actual verbatim? Did you miss the physical kinetic display of anger pounding on the table? Not just words, but the triggers, the mechanisms, talking about what they would do for a payback or revenge. We got a show coming up with that about that too. Payback and revenge. Thanks, William. Thanks, Chloe. Thanks, Dylan. We got all of that. Payback and revenge. Thank helicopter pilot that's angry all the time, Munoz. Yeah. The leakage, the communication, the intent to harm, the direct and indirect before the attack. Well, how do you recognize the indirect? Well, you've got to pay attention if they're, someone close to you. Now, one would argue that we can't pay attention to everybody. Well, obviously you can't. You can't talk to everybody. You're not talking to everybody at one time. You're not psychic friends network, but you do have contact with singular persons. You do have group contacts. But if an entire group misses the change in a person, what does that tell you about the group itself? Peers, social media, family members, they often do not recognize the danger. It's seen as entertainment on social media. It's seen as a form of backlash. It's seen as a form of self-expression. Well, it's not. If someone's putting enough care to put emotion, task, intent, linguistic value, words that are actually broken down into a method of direct interpretation for one's future actions, why are you going to ensue it? Why are you going to give it a thumbs up? How many times have you seen someone display something like that in social media, their anger, their hatred? We should get them. We should go back, and then a thumbs up. Well, all you're doing is aiding the leakage. You're squeezing the psychological trigger. The smiley face. Yeah. You would like to see little Steve or little Bob go out there as an active shooter. You're enforcing it, even though you're missing it. The zero tolerance policies. That's garbage. Zero tolerance policy makes us safer. Yeah, it's garbage if there's no disclosure. If there's a zero tolerance policy for linguistic, take AI for an example. When you're searching for something on AI, our university just released a really cool AI thing, or they thought it was really cool. Some of it's pretty cool, but I got on it, and as Dr. Mike G was going to try to do, I tried to break it and confuse it. Sure enough, I did. I locked it up because of filters. Researching specific words in criminology, criminalistic, serial killers, means, manner, blunt force trauma, asphyxiation, evulsive injury, AI locked up, filters, can't go any further, locked up. Society's going to do that too with the zero tolerance filter on it. They're going to lock up because of the fear of duty to warn, intervention, schools that automatically suspend students, businesses that automatically fire students for threatening behavior. businesses that automatically fire adults for threatening behavior or something that's a little adverse. I don't know, maybe you're a schizophrenic and you didn't tell anybody and now it's coming out. Yep, you're being chased by the ghosts of active shooter influencers. The, the employee's boss sees it, terminates them. It's ongoing. It's observed. It's intimidating. It's scary. Let's just fire them and get rid of them. Zero tolerance, but nothing is being reported to law enforcement or health, professionals, so to say. If you're too scared to report it to law enforcement because you're doing something shady in your business, well, find a mental health professional. Find them. At least you made an attempt, and nobody's going to come after you because of the things you recognize they didn't do crap about, but you still terminated or suspended. At least it's a 50-50 shot that you're not going to get hit with that tort or that civil liability because of, civil duty to warn. Zero tolerance policies. In the zero tolerance policies, well, from the ones I've seen, which are a lot of them reviewed during this research, that's kind of one of the reasons we got delayed on this. It was supposed to come out on the 18th, but we had to not release it, and so we didn't want to change the actual numeric of it because it falls in sequence with other special episodes. But more research at the table about active shooters and employers that knew it and did nothing. They just terminated the employee. The threat assessment team failed. The threat assessment team didn't pick up a phone. The threat assessment team didn't ask for who wants to go be the golden sheep of glory and life-saving and make this report. Yeah. Tracking down the trajectory, so to say. It failed. Tracking down the trajectory, and here comes the violence. The confidentiality in it, everybody wants that right of privacy, that security, even though you express it as the potential active shooter, the psychological side to it, the socialistic side, the sociological failure in it. When business owners, employers, school counselors, teachers, and this goes for law enforcement too, don't think that there haven't been law enforcement officers that had a psychological shift and became active shooters. Yes, do your research. A lot have. In the past 32 years, if I remember correctly, 31 or 32, I would say 32. I'd have to go back and look at our notes on that, but I don't have them with me right now because they're all on paper. This is all digital we're doing right now. Well, when all the mentioned above, all right, learn about weapon access. It hits the list of concern then. They face the impossible choice of breaking the FERPA, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or Americans with Disabilities Act, or federal laws that prevent disclosure of medical information, HIPAA, this law, that law. Yeah, now comes the actual concern. You're going to violate the law, and now you're setting yourself up for a tort. Well, are you willing to risk an active shooter? Or are you willing to risk something that's exigent? Think of law enforcement. One would say, well, you always have to have a warrant to go in. Wrong. No, not always. No. Wrong. Wrong across the spectrum. Intimate life preservation. Exigent circumstance. Got to be able to argue that. And if you connect with the right people, teams that are connected with law enforcement, they can aid you and direct you on that and ensure your safety, especially law enforcement. Don't rely on the council of attorneys, please, because the council of attorneys have nothing to do with the charges at the time and it bound over in the indictment, be it state or federally. Counsel with the actual trained people that are on the teams that include law enforcement. And if you work for an entity, for a school, for a business, company, corporation, privately owned, and you haven't sat down and talked about this, well, you really need to. I know several people that work for private entities, and they've had shootings in their places of employment. No one knew what to do other than pick up a phone and call 911 and hide and run. Not even crash, not even civilian response to active shooter situations. Nothing was done correctly. Things went on about the norm when law enforcement came in, investigated, found the shooter, went and hunted them down, regardless of the incident. Single, mass. Yeah, it's pretty sad in the U.S. Everybody wants to argue for greater gun control, but yet now you're going to jump into the federal spectrum of intrusion, right? Your privacy, you. How can you not sell a gun to me? I'm not psychologically damaged. Well, does the court say you are? Are you on law enforcement's radar? Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people slip through the nets because you're on law enforcement's radar, but law enforcement hasn't entered anything. Yeah, when I say entered anything, go ask to a certified NCIC dispatch. Yep, See if that, background investigation comes back from your local dispatcher or communication, what it says. Yeah, they're allowed to put notes in there. Yes, they are. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, just because there's no charge, that doesn't mean that information cannot be put in there. Now, some would say, well, that's red flag. Well, there's a reason for that. Someone's exhibited it. Someone's rattled through the teeth what the intent is. They've identified the willingness to follow through with an act of violence and use a weapon. Now, active shooter, gun, right? Pistol, long gun, shotgun, whatever, modified fully automatic overdrive, whatever it may be. Does it have to be just an active shooter? An active stabber? An active John Wick penciler? Think about this. An active paper and napkin holder? Head basher? Blunt force trauma? Yeah, it's something as simple as recognizing the linguistic tones. And I like to reflect to this as suicide. If one's willing to take their own life, think of the active assault, the assaulter. A lot of active shooter incidences end with the shooter taking their own life. Suicide, the exigent end path. There's an exigent circumstance for the shooter, too. Yeah, unless it's suicide by cop with intent. Should have a show on that, too. Yep, the harsh reality when the best violent risk assessment tools used by forensic psychiatrists have terrible accuracy rates, man. Creating false alarms 90% of the time while still missing the genuine threat. That's the red flag concern. False positives. What is the real reality for what one is hearing? And, we identified that, and that's through Large and Nielsen, 2017. Yeah. There's historical venue of this. False arrest, false charge, misdiagnosis, misinterpretation. And there's a lot of law enforcement investigative research that has been done on this through law enforcement outreach. Kind of sometimes like we get here on CJTV, somebody, the law enforcement agency, will reach out to us and say, hey, can you guys research this and put this out? Sure can. Same thing with this. 90% of the time, just still missing the genuine threats. And this comes from scholarly peer review research. This is not just garbage, ladies and gents. You can actually download it, the LinkedIn page. All right, LinkedIn, Michael Gurley, PhD, or you can go to the Facebook right there and download the thing. Research it, do it yourself, read it. Research shows that actual tools, all right, risk assessment instruments that use mathematical formulas and statistical data rather than, clinical judgment alone slightly outperform clinical institutions. The math doesn't lie. 2 + 2 is 4. 2 and 2 is 22. Using that as an example. Now, that would be metadata, meta-analysis, statistical review. That's why we do literature reviews, white paper. We don't do like journal publications for this show to launch it out and say, hey, look at me, I was in this specific catalog or that book. But it's downloaded and we're putting it out as a white paper. We're publishing it from the show here, CJTV, and it is endorsed by somebody that is endorsed by several international organizations. That would be, oh, yeah, you're looking at him, me, do your own research. Not wearing the battery chip here, but if I'm telling you what research says here, there's got to be a peer review reason for it. Thus the investigation, thus the restrictions and the limitations. What is the restriction and the limitation based on the forensic psychiatrist having terrible accuracy rates versus the mathematical formulas versus the behavioral, realistic statistical data that can be calculated? Violent risk assessment standards, clinical interviews checklist provide the probability that a person will commit a violent act. That's cool. That's good. Kind of like taking that 4-hour psychological test. Anybody ever taken that long, hideous psychological test for law enforcement? God, I've taken several of them. I think the longest one I ever took was like almost 5 hours, man. It was like 3 pages. I had to take that thing before a task force position. It was horrible. Horrible. Same questions, just reworded. One sociological section, one risk assessment section. Man, checking those boxes is great, but it doesn't have a statistical factor like past behavior that can't be just simply captured in a check the box. No, because there's no interview, there's no viewing, there's no evaluation from a technician, clinical practitioner. And sometimes it checking the box escalates towards the desired end result of violent offense in the future. Thus, we need to build some more red flag laws. We need more gun control. How about enforcing the ones that we already have and stop being concerned about privacy? Yeah, make the warning. Good God, it's not rocket science. You're going to wait till it affects you. That's typically how society is. Nothing wrong until it affects them. It's the null hypothesis, not the alternate that's going to happen in the future. The null would be Robin telling Batman, hey, Gotham's safe. Yeah, same way here. Same thing in this show. Let's see. Relevance on the tools creates false positive, defined incorrectly, identifying someone as high risk when they don't actually become violent. Yeah. I've actually seen that in real life as a criminal investigator for a CID division, as a lieutenant commander. I've seen it. I've seen other detectives get that same type of response from practitioners when nothing ever happens. So then you have that intrusion. And I've also seen it miss too. Oh, they're great. Nothing's going to happen. Then 3 days later, after that bound over to a grand jury, well, it's on. So no need for a trial, even though the true bill or indictment. Law enforcement had to respond. Yep, it can ruin innocent lives too. Ones that argue it, emotionally say something, articulate something that one would pick up as a trigger, but it's really not real. Not saying that society or an individual in society would have the skill set to recognize the real deal or one that's just verbally expressing. Law enforcement and psychological practitioners, right? Sociological practitioners have a hard enough time as it is trying to do that. So you think someone in society without the training, the education, or the experience is going to be able to put a finger on it? No. But a lot of them have been identified. Thus, the reason for intervention. They've been intervened for that specific possibility of displaying violence, and nothing is done about it. Well, what do you expect? It's kind of a get out of jail free card. Well, I got, intervention, but I didn't go to jail for offending someone or making linguistic threats online or linguistic threats, unless it was somebody, at a higher executive position. Yeah. Executive position. Thus, that's why the three-tiered executive, judicial, legislative. It's not always there for you as the single sole entity in society. It's a control mechanism, much like the identifying the pre-attack syndrome, intervention failures. It's a control and uncontrolled syndrome. A lot of failure, a lot of low risk, and a lot of high risk too. Oh, the better risk management. How do you make it better again? Make back better, like Joe Biden said. Let's talk about that. Define strategies to reduce the risk through monitoring, treatment, emotional controls rather than trying to predict one's specific future behavior or act. Well, do alcoholics have Alcoholics Anonymous? Do they have supporters? Do they have the people that they call? Hey, I want to drink, Steve. And then here comes a whole 30 minute of why one drink, one sip is not good for you. Mentally, physically. Well, where's the super hammer of Thor and the gods of saving lives? Where's it at for potential risk of violent behavior for active shooters? Anybody ever seen it? It's not predominantly pushed in society. It's not. I've been in this business for a long time and haven't seen it, man. Haven't seen it. Yeah, you got, councils and counselors and communities that band together, but you don't have anything really being pushed hardcore out there. This means that we accept that we can't foresee violence, but we can structure intervention based on our own perception to reduce the opportunity. Yeah. Alertness. Don't be the victim. Have your head up high. Get your face out of the dumb phone box. Yeah, lock the doors, keys, codes. Park a junk police car on campus. We got one of those. I would touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. That car's so ugly. God. Wash it, clean it, keep gas in it. Everybody knows it's there for a stage. There's no law enforcement officer there, especially if it's in the same position for 12 hours, 8 hours, 4 hours. It's just there. Just there. You don't think the bad person or the offender knows this too? They're not stupid. They avoided you, society. Gave you all the triggers, all the warnings. You missed it. The reduced approach. Things we have to look at. Now I know somebody going, man, this guy's like feeding stuff like a fire hose. Well, if you need a recap, go download the paper. It's out there on our Facebook page. Let's talk about a few things. The base rate fallacy of settings in corporations, schools, businesses. You've got to explain that because shootings are extremely rare events. Yeah, shootings are more rare than assaults. Shootings are rarer than knife stabbing. Shootings are rarer than physical fist assaults, blunt force object assaults. Yes, it's kind of like everybody perceives the black man is the victim of the mass gun violence. No, it's white. Do your own statistical review. Go to the FBI's website. Yes, they'll tell you, like, where are you getting that? Why would you trust the FBI? Because agencies report it. Yeah, do your own research. I had to prove that and show that in 3 classes about 2 weeks ago, and I saw jaws just open and surprise and shock. My goodness. Yeah, extremely rare events. Any prediction, guess it's going to happen tool generates thousands of false alarms. Yeah, thousands of them. Why? Because people can't keep their mouths shut. Everybody wants to talk. And by the time the shooter or the one that's going to commit the violence does commit to the act and with intent performs it, they've already heard the circle of rumorville. Because it's like a third grade classroom, right? Tell 1, 20 know in 20 minutes. False alarms. The information's going to get back there, knowing who to contact and when. These are those violations of privacy and intimacy one has to consider too within the school, business, practitionership realm of whatever your abilities are, psychological, sociological. Who knows? A pallet making company, never know. Who are you going to warn? The statistical, phenomenon. A phenomenon is a problem, people. You hear the word problem, phenomenon, adversity, alternative. A phenomenon called the base rate problem. Here's the base rate problem with predicting active shooters. The difficulty of predicting rare conditions between when even accurate test procedures, accurate interpretation, accurate argument of linguistic terminologies, none of the verbiage truly produces the accurate scenario, the incident, the moment, the mens rea, does not, create the trigger. Thus, behavioral analysis unit. Yeah, it's something, it's a suspect, it's a unsub, it's a, well, are you going to, look for this, look for this, look for that? There's that high possibility of interpretation of the actual case, interpretation of one's behavior, built off of check the box, built off of statistical venue and study, but it doesn't apply to everyone singularly. Think about yourself. What would it take to trigger you? Yeah, not the same as it would be for someone else. Intimacy, insult, lack of respect, got fired for no reason, your presumption, no reason. Somebody had a reason to fire you. Somebody had a reason to twist that emotion in you. Rare conditions because the accurate tests produce more false positives. True. Also, yeah. The test, the paper, the check the box, the interviewer of the interviewee is not going to be in the same position with high pressure, low self-esteem. They're not going to be there. They're not going to be there with the mental breakdown. They're not going to be there with the machine learning won't save us. Yeah, machine learning. You're programmed on what to look for. Employers, teachers, counselors. You're told. The majority of people and the majority of entities, businesses, schools have no real training on how to react, how to identify. Thus, crash training, the civilian response to active shooter. A crash, something as simple as that. Everybody knows run, fight, barricade. Sometimes that'll get you killed. Yeah, run. Oh, just watch the FBI's videos. Run. Open. No duck, dodge, weave. Anybody watch Daffy Duck Looney Tunes as a kid? Yeah, the Robin Hood, the stick. duck, dodge, weave, parry, twist, you're gone. Yeah. You got to have real training. You got to push the mentors and the leaders in the establishments that you work in, that you volunteer in, businesses, schools, volunteer agencies, churches. Churches. Oh, that's a bad one. I'm not even going to get into that one. Not even going to. Hey, Mike, we had training at our church today with this guy that came in from this company, and he taught me this, this, and this, and almost threw up in my mouth a little bit. Here's a video of it. Now, there's a video out there, and one of the people in that video, I know, they were being trained for active shooter. Yes. They were taught the psychological aspect of it, so to say. That's what I was given. Then he said, hey, look at this video. One of the actors is walking back and forth with a AR-15. Looked like an old school, DPMS, not a Colt M4, but a DPMS, the first edition, for those that know the platform. Walking by the glass window, seeing into the cathedral, and everybody was hiding behind the wooden piano cover, watching the guy walk. Well, that thing can go through your window. It can go through your glass. How do I know? I asked him, what's the penetration level and or category restriction of the glass? It's just plexiglass. There you go. You don't think that active shooter knows these things, that attends the church, the one that works next to you, the data predictors? If you can't even recognize the safety mechanism in your own place of employment where you go to school, how are you going to, pay attention to the psychological behavioral change, the linguistics, the manner, the amplified existing bias that can't, be overcome by you and your fundamental unpredictability of what's going to happen, because you can't predict human behavior, especially when it's events like mass shootings. There's a lot to it. A lot to it. Let's move on. When your therapist knows you're in danger but can't tell you. Oh, yeah. Your therapist knows you're in danger and can't tell you. Wow. That's one of those save my licenses. Oh, my gosh. Those laws. In 1976, where the California Supreme Court ruled that mental health professionals have a duty to warn, define the legal obligation to breach confidentiality and notify potential victims when a client makes credible threats, identifiable victims of imminent harm. Thus, exigent circumstances. Audi and Mathbout, 2018. I'm just giving you guys some, source reviews that are in our true publication. I say our, my name's on it. Got a little bit of help, but I did the majority of this one, so I'm not going to give my nickels to somebody else. But all the stuff we got coming up in the future show, future shows, plural, it's all going to be the researchers and me together. We got a lot of stuff going. We got like 4 episodes plotting out, hammering down. Yep. Now, 40 years later, 1776, therapists still face the Tarsoff dilemma. Yeah, it's called the Tarsoff landmark. Tarasov dilemma. So, landmark, the ethical conflict between maintaining client confidentiality and protecting third parties from harm. Well, the client's the number one. My client, I'm going to protect my client confidentiality, not going to violate any laws and put myself in a lawsuit ringer. Spend too much money on my business. Been doing it for 20 years. I'm certified, bona fide, stamped on both sides all across the United States and all kinds of stuff, so I'm not going to risk losing that. But without clear guidance on what constitutes imminent, real, intimate, bam, has the means, has the manner, the ability, the time, and the articulative detail. Now, that's what makes eminent. Eminent is in the words, how one articulates it, thus like a search warrant, underlining facts and circumstances. The judge is not going to just sign a warrant, not knowing what the heck's going on. The imminent, the danger, or how to handle threats. Yeah. The danger and how to handle it against groups rather than specific people is kind of critical in the United States. All the way from 2016 to 2026. Thus, people are fearful of making that a notification. Yeah, that inherent right to privacy. Violating that word of law that keeps someone's information exclusive to the one that they disclosed it to solely. Yeah. Put a comment in the chat. What are your thoughts about the duty to warn? Imminent threat. Research also reveals that Malpractice lawsuits drive many therapists to the defensive practice. Now, what is the defensive practice? From my experience and, the psychological side, the forensic psychology side of it, here's what it is. It's making a clinical decision primarily to avoid legal liability rather than based on your patient or your client's welfare. Yeah, because most practitioners, excuse me, I was working in a garden all day. Most practitioners are not willing to risk their certifications, their business, their clinic. Most employers aren't willing to risk this either under legality, bureaucracy, bureaucratic lawsuit, people coming after them. Oh, he was an extreme righty. They were extreme lefty. The politics is now inserted, and somebody on a tort prosecutorial side against the one that warned, the one that said, well, I recognize the imminent danger. I'm going to warn, make warning known. And someone argues it as a false flag because something didn't happen. Well, it was prevented from happening. Now come the torts, the lawsuits, the civil suits, the deep pockets. That's why practitioners are in that, that deep hole, that rabbit hole they can't climb out of. So many laws, everybody wanting to protect somebody that possibly had the means, the manner, the ability, the time, the reason, the mitigating exigent circumstance. Mens rea was obviously in total disarray, linguistically presented, physically through anger, violence, display. Now comes the lawsuit. Man, society's gotten so bent sideways on deep pockets and money. It's just one of those fear factors. We're not arguing against or for any bureaucracy or, so to say, political side, but society has reached that point. Hospitalizations rather than breaking the therapeutic trust, so to say. That's where we're at. Increasing long-term violent risk and possible offenders. Oh, well, it's not happening now. We can't prosecute what didn't happen. We can't intervene on something that didn't happen. Congratulations, society. You voted for these people that make these laws and argue in the executive level and argue the legislative level as a judiciary review expert. And law enforcement is part of the executive and judicial review. They're the first hands-on judiciary of the legislative side. Now think about the stress level there. Now, if law enforcement has the stress level of intervening and how we're going to do it, how is a private clinician going to do it? How's a private business owner going to do it? Law enforcement's fearful of it. Well, nothing's happened. Can't intervene. Can't do anything. Nobody's reported anything except for you reporting something that hasn't happened based on your interpretation. Plenty of law enforcement agencies have taken the word, the advice, the notification, and the duty to warn by a clinical practitioner and have done nothing about it. It's kind of like, hey, it's a missing persons case. Well, they're an adult who just wanted to get away. Two things in CJ you never ignore. I learned this the hard way. Not that I screwed it up, but I had to work with an agency that did screw it up. Missing persons and children. I'll give you an example. When the news helicopter finds the body of the missing person floating in a lake in your jurisdiction, and me, this guy, is aiding that jurisdiction, and I get the notification from the news channel calling me on my phone, hey, we found your body. Well, it's not my body. It's someone else's body. It's a case of a missing. Yeah, a news helicopter found it 2 days later, floating in the nearest lake. Yep, I was the guy on the boat going out there picking the turtles and the fish off to get the body in the boat. Me. No coroner, just me and a civilian dude with a boat with a little bitty motor. Wasn't even a trolley motor. It was like a 10 horsepower motor. Things that you don't ignore. Active shooter pretext. You don't ignore. If there's a question, ask somebody that has skills, has been trained. Yep, the Tarzov was designed for the one-on-one threat, not the mass. No mass casualty events. It was the one-on-one. The one-on-one, oh, that's easy. But the mass casualty, now you're making the assumption that someone is going to take mass lives and has interaction with mass people. Thus, there are probably mass reasons for the mass shooter, the active shooter, to paralyze society, paralyze the practitioner. paralyze the employer through linguistic words that convince the employer, the psychologist, psychiatrist, the practitioner of mental health, to not want to say anything, because now we're involved with multiple names, multiple identities, multiple people that are going to be placed into fear due to the positive flag, the positive or the false positive that comes. Yeah, the positive create total chaos. No one wants to be the one that shouts fire in a movie theater, except for somebody that just wants to watch the theater burn. You never know. And historically, we had a guy come in dressed as the Joker during a Batman premiere. Anybody remember that? Yeah, that's a schizophrenia, mental dilapidative case all on its own. And no, we're not going to do a case study on that. That's been beat and beat like a wet noodle. Yes, it has. Mass shooters rarely name specific individuals during therapy, expressing instead general rage against society, the school, the business, they, them. It doesn't trigger the tears off obligation because no victim has been identified, no specific person. Thus, law enforcement needs a specific name. Counselors need a specific name before they can report the imminent threat, exigent circumstance, for violating the privilege of client integrity. The confidentiality paradox. Holland et al. 2001 found that when therapists warn potential victims, they are often destroyed. Yes, emotionally destroyed. And it destroys the therapeutic alliance with the therapist. Yes, even though the person is truly a, high value threat by an active shooter, they're the target. That person's probably not going to come back to that therapist anymore because the therapist had contact with the shooter. The one that was developing the plot with intent to take a life or take mass lives. Oh my gosh, think about your business. It's a therapeutic person, a psychologist, someone in the world of psychiatry, psychology, sociology, and a name is dropped, and now you find it as intimate. The exigent circumstance. Well, what were you doing talking to John, who wants to shoot me? He's your client? Oh my gosh, I'm never coming to you again. Clients are leaving. Don't want to lose that money, right? Yep. It eliminates, through that reporting, it eliminates the psychologist or, practitioner's ability to influence a client's behavior toward nonviolence, toward creating the catch-22 where that warning may increase the violence. Look, man, I know I'm not supposed to tell you, but John said, he was mad and he was going to, get back at you and he was going to beat you down. He told me, that, he was going to kill you. So now I have to report it. What's that catch-22? Is it just linguistic? Is it just words? Is a defense or a prosecutor in a civil case against you, the therapist, the psychologist, going to hammer down because it was just linguistics? It's the big fear. It's the confidentiality paradox. When we violate and when we do not. But as the, show and tells, there are a lot of therapists and a lot of people that have skill sets, trained, that already have possible offenders in that checkbox. Multiple offenders in those checkboxes. No one's going to release it. No one's going to. Let's see what we got. Let's hit a few more things before we close this. Now, if you want the full detail and the full rift on this, go download the actual paper. Go download it. It's pretty cool. Let me bring it up and I'll show you. It'll look like, this. This is a media fire. This is what we actually use. And when we download them, when we upload, when people download it. But it's all there, and it's all published on LinkedIn and our Facebook section. Let's talk about let's move through this, find some interesting stuff. Yeah, the warning signs that were all wrong or right all along. Right or wrong, the warning signs are there. It's the interpretation. Remember this, right? Abel, 2022, et al. Analyzed that school shooters, right? I'm looking at analyzed 20 school shooters and found every single one exhibited pre-attack behaviors. The definition to it, according to Abel, et al. 2022, observable actions, Wow, look at this. What I just said. Kinesic, linguistic displays, statements, words, and or writing that indicate preparation for violence. Oh, before an act occurs. Writing, visualization. It's kind of like plain view, right? What's on the little, manifest for work there? What are you writing on the back? What's in the notebook laying on the lunch table? What's in the letter that you're reading? And I'm standing right behind you, and you've opened up a big letter, and you're reading it in plain view in public. Don't read my letter over the shoulder. Well, go find somewhere in private to read it. You're in a public place, buddy. I'm your boss. You're my employee. You're on my time. So I see it. Yeah. Things that have been identified. Every single one exhibited pre-attack warning. And it was, research that analyzed 20 school shooters. Information's in the research. Go download it. That's sad. And this is able, ETL. ETL means multiple researchers along with this one researcher. Alphabetical order for those that, are missing this. Go download it, go research it. I did. It's pretty interesting. All right. Here's a part of the study that you may want to go download and read. The study identifies leakage, defined as the intentional and or unintentional communication of intent to harm to third parties before an attack. That's the big scare factor. Nobody wants so-and-so hearing about it. Well, if I tell this person, that person, this person, it's kind of like, preschool. Tell one person, 20 minutes later, it's reached 200 people. Everybody knows it. Now the myths, the legends, the rumor mills, the big fish is a little fish was a big fish is happening. The most common warning signs are missed and fear of linguistically communicating the warning signs exists in society. Why? Bureaucracy. Yep. Getting sued. That's the biggest fear. It is. Breaking the news to you. Don't hate me. Go read the research paper. Download it for yourself. Yeah. Sometimes shooters, as we said before, talk about it online, social media. Peers see it. Employers see it. Peers in schools, universities see it. Your buddies at the local bar. Your buddies at the poker night. Your girlfriends at the girls' night out, wine chalet, whatever it is you're doing. You're reading it. The peers often view it as a hyperbolic venting episode rather than a credible threat. That's what they do. Judy's just off the tilt again. Had too much of that wine at the Chamberlain Downs. Yeah, it's a hyperbolic, just venting. And a day later, here it comes. Yes. Then there's the weapon fascination for, the shooter. Why does it have to be a gun? Wow. The weapon fascination. The obsessiveness, the intent of the interest, the firearms, the explosives, the tactical gear, the stuff that goes beyond the normal the curiosity. Yeah. Spent $200 on Amazon aircraft garbage and went out and bought me a real gun. Yep. The cheapest one I could find, but it still worked, still caused damage. The interest, why the firearm? Withdrawals. Yeah, the withdrawals from the peer relationships, the extracurricular activity. They're leaving. You notice they're not around anymore. They're not going out anymore. They're not hitting the pub with you. They're not going out to the wine Chamberlain Downs. Yep. But they're hyperbolically all over the internet. How much they hate this, how much they hate that, how they've been hurt, how someone misused them, misinterpreted their words. Sorry about how I made you feel. Well, you don't control anybody's feelings or emotions. It's a trigger. You don't respond the way they want you to respond, they being the potential actor of violence. Hyperbolic, the venting. Even though there are no words, they're venting upstairs. It's kind of like shutting your mind off when you want to go to sleep, but you got things on the table you got to do. You can't stop thinking, so you can't go to sleep. Anybody ever had that happen before? Put the thumbs up in the chat. Put it in a comment. Yep, this creates the high-risk profile. Yeah, the hyperbolic venting. Yeah, the weapon fascination, because it's something that all the hyperbolic venters fear. Look at it. We need gun control. Guns, guns, guns. Well, the majority of active shooters aren't trained. Yes, you want gun control? Here's my level of gun control. Weapon retention. Yeah. Weapon presentation, over and over, hand grip, extension, apex of the body, isosceles, weaver, when, what, where. Knowing society doesn't look at it that way. Society sees it as the hyperbolic choice during venting because it's what people fear because no one is responding to the hyperbolic venting of the potential actor of violence, the one that does it. Yep, creates the high risk profile. These behaviors are often normalized. Yep. Typical teenage interests: venting, emotion, drama. It's all there. I don't do drama. That's why I stay off social media. You're on social media. You're in the click. You're talking. You don't do the social media, but you're sure reading it. Yeah, kind of like me. I don't post a lot, but I do read it. I do read it. Not out there, linguistically chatting away, but I do read it. One can see it. One can see the triggers. Research also shows that, shooters typically exhibit, that pathway behavior, kind of like, a gateway drug, the steps taken for an attack, the acquirement of the tools, the weapon, the gear. You ever notice that active shooters, typically very rarely show up just plain Jane? They want to have that image, that belt strap, that Velcro janky Chinese system with a whole bunch of magazine holders. Yep, got it off eBay, got it off Amazon. It's the rendering of the target, the time, when, who, what, where. No one can predict this, but people can actually observe when behavior is being changed, those pathway behaviors. What one looks for in adults. Well, you're an adult. You knew what Steve was doing before Steve had the traumatic moment in life, the drama, the exigent circumstance, the thing that triggers Steve into the hyperbolic tantrum. You know what it is. The fixation. Steve is fixed on it. Steve is not shifting. That's a pathway. Yes, it's a pathway. What is that one person you're observing doing that is hyperbolic? The shift. Research actually also found that in nearly every case of an active shooter, at least one peer knew about the attack. Yes, knew about the attack. Yeah, knew about the attack either linguistically through triggers, pathway, hyperbolic rant, social media. We're not saying they, knew the intent of, every minute by minute when I'm going to do it and who the targets are, but they knew an attack was coming. Something is going to happen. They knew the plan before time. Yeah, the plan. They knew it. They just missed the words because they couldn't interpret the words. They couldn't interpret the behavior. They couldn't interpret the pathway. So they don't have knowledge to interpret the pathway or how to read and understand the hyperbolic rant. Well, there's nothing to say. There's no duty to warn. There's no need for exigent intervention or, to intervene into the imminent threat. That's my friend, Bob. Yep. Failure to intervene, failure to report, diffusion of the responsibility. Diffusion of the responsibility. Society's diffused itself. Society's too scared of the lawsuit, the false positive. Even though someone truly had the intent of doing it, had the gear, had the equipment, but didn't do it. Now it's, you accuse me. How dare you? Yeah, kind of like the environmental goal. How dare you? Yeah, well, guess what? Civil lawsuits coming your way. That's what society's scared of. Read the research. Facebook and LinkedIn. Go get it. Yep. Not like I didn't know it was there, but man, it's kind of cool when peer review slaps you in the face with it. Peer reviewed. The diffusion of responsibility in society. It's a normalization. Normalization of the threat. Why? Everybody hyperbolically rants on Facebook. The majority of you come here and you watch this and you're like, this is boring. It's all academic stuff. I'm going to go to the stuff that feeds me what I want, triggers my emotion. The political venue. Who do I agree with? But you're not learning anything. You're watching all of the gloom and doom that people are stealing. Well, the president released this. Well, this was on the news. Well, go read it for yourself. Go watch it for yourself. Stop being lazy and relying on someone to hyperbolically rant to you. If you can't pick up on it when your friends are hyperbolically ranting and have the intent and the means and the manner, the skill, the ability, the tools, but you're not even going to watch that, Why would you watch this and learn something? Anonymous. Yeah, we're not talking about the cyber team, but the anonymous reporting. You ever thought of that? Anonymous. You use the words right. You get the training. You actually make your employers, yeah, I said make, hound them, threaten them, hound them, threaten them, hound them and threaten them. Why? Why? Protocol, policy, procedure. Yes, threaten your employer, especially when there's an active shooting event that happened. Well, there was an active shooting event that happened close to your employment. Yeah. Do you think all active shooters are alone? Do you think all active shooters act individually? No, not all of them. Someone knew. Someone knew. Think of the loved ones, the friends. Nobody did anything. Everybody knew that they were on the pathway. Even me, and I didn't do anything. You don't think that person's going to pathway straight to you? Especially if you knew the active shooter that was on the pathway, that was hyperbolic, and you laughed at it, gave it the thumbs up. Good vid, John. 2 days later, John's an active shooter. It's the pattern for adults. Teens and juveniles are kind of different. Yep, they will help pull that trigger so fast. It's kind of like kids are mean, right? Yeah, everybody knows that. Everybody knows it. So to close this actual show out, because we don't want to really spend a lot of time here, kind of like those watch us redo the media for 3 hours or live stream what's going on when you can just read it for yourself. We kind of talked about a few failures, didn't expose all of them, but, we kind of exposed what everybody pretty, much commonly knew. But it goes into more detail in the actual research. So, talking solutions. That's one thing we're going to focus on in the future is solutions to the lack of duty to warn, the lack of intervention, the lack of recognition of the pathway, the hyperbolic system. What we need to do to understand it, what kind of training, what's out there for training. That's key. You're going to have to research that too. What's out there for training in these potential active shooter events, how to identify, and what it costs. Is it free? Not always is the government program the best. Believe me. Go watch the FBI videos. Yeah, I said it, the FBI videos. Prior law enforcement professor, CJ. Yep, the FBI videos. Those are some of the worst ones, especially their alert videos. My goodness, guys, you should have left it with Texas and not tried to take it, put your little logo on it. Texas was great at it for the FBI. Put their in the corner. Oh, this is great. We can't come up with ourselves. Let's copy theirs. Let's jump in there and mess it up. Yep, that's the truth. And if you're in law enforcement, historically, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Let's clear the stairwell. Yeah, give a pumpkin to run around at. So what we're going to do in the future is we're going to dig into this and find out what intervention is out there, what training is out there for employers, for, for schools, practitioners, psychologists, sociological, right? And, just both spectrums of it, because there's a lot of, practitioners in psychology and sociology. So we're going to find out what's out there and what the actual real intent is of society to avoid or to truly identify. Yep, we're going to find it. So that's going to be another special episode, kind of like this one is. When is it going to come out? I don't know. It's going to take a while to research this, kind of like it, took a, couple of breaks before we release this. That's why in the ticker, it's showing up as, 14/8, but it's not the 18th. And yes, we kind of do it, month, day, year. So we had to kind of back off on this a little bit. I did. When I say we, those that helped me actually pull some of the sources and some of the information to put in the white paper. Yes, it's a white paper. It's a literature review. Basically, it's a white paper. Well, white paper is scholarly too. Go read it. You just may learn something you didn't know. Thanks for showing up. And we got new shows coming out that actually have a lot of researchers. We got some new researchers, man. I'm so giddy happy right now. Semester's about to close. Yes, it is. Finals next week. It's coming. Finals. Yep. Got my strategic invisible red pen out. No, I'm not worried about it. Everybody that's in my class, they already know. They're all doing stellar jobs. I'm so lucky to have good students that actually just blow me away sometimes. It's awesome. Have a good night.